Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
This is the Seahawks Show on the Happy Hour Network.
Touchdown, Seahawks!
Your hosts are Kevin Daggett.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
And Lee Vowell.
I mean, he gets hit in his knees and he's about to cry. Hit me in my leg.
This is the show by Seahawks fans for Seahawks fans.
Tyler Lockett at his own 30. He starts right, cuts back to the middle, breaks a tackle. Here he goes again. He's across midfield. One man to beat.
Seahawks, the best team in football.
Russell drops back into the shotgun on 1st and 10 at the Minnesota 39. Oh, a snap goes far beyond Russell. He slides down, picks it up, on the move, rolls, looks right, down the middle. Tyler Lockett, he's got it in the middle of the field. He gets a block, 25-20, 15-10, 5. Necktie tackled out at the 4-yard line.
And welcome to the Seahawks Show with Lee and Kevin. You can hear this show on the Happy Hour Network live and on podcasts with NGSE Sports, I-95 Sports Network, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. Today, our guests will be Jacson Bevens of SB Nation's Seahawks site, Field Gulls, and Danika Brace of the Seattle Mist. Kevin, how are you?
I'm living large, man. Doing good.
So we have a little bit of breaking news. The outline that we always send out always changes, of course. But Jari Evans is supposed to come in for a visit tomorrow. He's a right guard for the Saints. He's made 4 All-Pro teams. He's 32 years old, I believe. Any excitement about Evans coming in tomorrow?
Not really. I'm not sure what that says about their confidence in the offensive line, or if they're just looking for more bodies. Like you said, he is 32. The Saints didn't re-sign him. He hasn't been picked up yet. And I think he was injured quite a bit last year. Or maybe not quite a bit, but I know he was injured last year, had some arthroscopic surgery. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I'm not overly excited about it, but I guess my main concern is they're obviously not confident with the offensive line they got.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too, because they've had a few days of training camp now, and Evans is, bringing him in. Yeah, he's a guy who's had success. He's missed, I think, 7 games. You mentioned he had the arthroscopic surgery, but he's missed 7 games in 10 years. Not too bad. Actually, it was pretty good last year. He didn't want to take a pay cut with the Saints. Is one reason he didn't re-sign there. But I'm kind of like you. It's like, do they see what they have currently, and they're thinking, we're kind of desperate at this point with bringing Evans in. That would definitely be a concern. The other side of that is that Michael Bennett, defensive lineman, of course, people don't watch Seahawks football. He's been in several skirmishes, I should say, in this training camp, and there seems to be a lot of tension between the offensive line and defensive line. Do you think it's a matter of the defensive line understands that this offensive line needs to be tougher, and that's maybe why he's doing that?
Yeah, that might be part of it. I know one of his skirmishes a couple times with Fetty, and I don't know if that's some Texas A&M thing or what, but
that's a good point.
That may be a good point. Is that you guys need to step it up, and I know. Fetty threw some guy to the ground, and the defensive guys didn't like it. I'm not. I like a good competition. I think it tells me that they're fired up. Both, everybody's fired up, ready to go. Let's start hitting people, and I just hope it stays, under control and doesn't get into where start causing resentments and go too far, because we don't need any drama this early in the season.
Yeah, that's true. And one thing, that's different from last year as far as this year is that we don't have one of the key pieces of the defense holding out. Last year we saw Cam Chancellor holding out and missing the first 2 games. And Michael Bennett's always, there's always that thread he could hold out, but he doesn't seem to be that kind of guy where he actually is going to hold out. He may be unhappy with his contract, but he doesn't actually let the team down, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying that. And so Michael Bennett really seemed to be the only guy who would hold out. We've seen some holdouts in the NFL. Maybe this is a good sign coming into this year, where it's just a matter of maybe the team's a little bit more focused, whereas last year, not just Cam, but they started off slowly. Maybe the team just wasn't as focused going into 2015. Is that your hope? One of your hopes, at least for 2016, is maybe the team is a little bit more aware of, hey, we're not the team that we have been, the last couple of years. We should be the team that won the Super Bowl. What do you think about that?
Well, I would hope so. And they got their clock cleaned in the first half of that Carolina game, and I mean, it's hopefully somebody got humbled a little bit by that. But the Michael Bennett thing, I think he's got a chip on his shoulder, which he deservedly should have. He's living up to his end of the bargain by showing up to camp, and he's been a little boisterous about things, but that's his personality. I can't blame him for that. That's just how he is. He speaks his mind. And I'm hoping that there's been some behind-the-scenes conversations with him that, dude, we're going to take care of you. Just do what you're supposed to do, and we're going to take care of you. And I really hope those conversations have happened. But, part of it may be because he has that chip on his shoulder. He knows he's underpaid, and everybody knows he's underpaid. But I think we'll be all right.
And a couple of things that have happened as far as signings since we did our last show a couple of weeks ago is that John Schneider and Pete Carroll have both gotten extensions. What do you think about that?
I think that's great. I think I mentioned it last show that I hope that needs to happen and lock those guys up. They've been successful, and I think I saw something in there about there was some suspicion that somebody wanted to put it, or Snyder wanted to put in an out clause if he could go to he could go to no team, but no other team, but he could go to the Packers, but or he couldn't go to the Packers, something like that. But I don't know how you couldn't have re-signed those guys with the success they've had over the last 4 or 5 years. So that was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it seemed to be for Seahawks fans at least, and I think the Seahawks have a really good owner who's understanding of what it takes to make the team run, where a lot of other teams don't have that, per se. So, yeah, I was happy to see that both signed for extended 4 years beyond this season through 2019. So, hopefully that will it's funny that they got extended 4 years, and a lot of their key pieces as far as, Sherman, Earl Thomas, a lot of those, Russell Wilson, a lot of those guys are signed through, just before that 2019 season. I wonder if we'll be doing this show in 2019 thinking, well, we've got the third pick in the draft. Well, hopefully something good will happen from this. Hopefully it won't happen like that, but, hopefully over the next 4 years we have a lot of success. So we are going to play a few highlights of last season. And after that, we are going to be joined by Jacson Bevens of fieldgoals.com.
Baldwin wide to the far side on 2nd down and 10. Russell out of the shotgun. Russell has time. Looks, fires to the goal line. Ball's gone. Doug Baldwin. Touchdown. Seahawks. Doug Baldwin. Another touchdown reception. He fights his way into the end zone, and the Seahawks make the Ravens pay for the turnover deep in their own territory. They go on top 13-3. Johnson wide to the left. Stafford takes the snap. Looks left. Fires inside. Ball's caught by Johnson. He gets in the end zone. He fumbles in the end zone. The ball comes out of the back of the end zone. Did he break the plane with the ball? The official says it's a touchback. He says the ball came out and went out the back of the end zone. A touchback. I know it'll be challenged.
On the field is a runner fumbled the ball prior to the goal line. It went out of the end zone. It is a touchback. Seattle's ball, first down at the 20.
Oh! And Kevin, I believe at this time we are joined by Jacson Bevens. Blog Talk Radio has given us a little bit of issues, but I think he's on the line. So maybe he's not. So Jacson, if you heard us, if you could call back in 347-857-1947. Tried to call him, but obviously Blog Talk Radio is not wanting to help us at this point. So anyway, if
Technical difficulties, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Blog Talk Radio is always fun. So anyway, after those highlights, what do you think about Brandon Browner? Are you happy with him? With the way things have gone, the Chargers not showing up?
Yeah, I'm real happy with that because I was, the last thing this team needs is some unwanted national attention for something silly like that. And Brandon Browner's got issues of penalties and things like that. And I'm just real, like I've always said, I'm a big fan of him, and I hope he makes the team. I think he'll be good inside, moving inside from that outside position, and clean the clocks of some of those tight ends running across the middle this year, hopefully.
Kevin, sorry about that. We do have Jacson back on the line, Jacson Bevens of Field Goals. So you want to introduce our wonderful guest?
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Jacson Bevens to the show. Jacson writes for SB Nation's Seahawks site, Field Goals. That's Gulls. Jacson, thanks for being on.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Hey, Jacson, last year Lee and I were talking. We had some unwanted drama and unwanted national attention with Cam Chancellor holding out. This year so far seems to be, other than some minor legal issues that seem to have resolved themselves, there hasn't been much drama coming into camp. You think that's a sign that the Seahawks are really going to be a little more focused going into the 2016 season?
Yeah, I really do. I think that last year was a little bit of a trappings of success type of year, where, you're talking about, granted they're coming off of one of the most, if not the most heartbreaking loss in NFL history. They're going to have to see that play on replay for the next 50 years. And, it's the type of thing that when the team was coming up young and hungry, you look at the way they lost in 2012, a real heartbreaker to Atlanta. They came back super hungry and, basically took the league to task the following year and won the Super Bowl. Whereas you see them come off that heartbreaking loss in 2014, and you had, a lot of guys who had sort of arrived already. They were all pros. They had gotten paid, or felt it was time to get paid. And I think all of those are real legit concerns, and I typically side with players with contract negotiations just because the scales are so weighted against them with the way the CBA is. But when you have 4 or 5 guys doing that, and you got to give out a lot of new money to your quarterback, who is now an A-list celebrity, and to your middle linebacker, and to your defensive ends, and your free safety, and your all-pro cornerback, there's a lot more money in that locker room all of a sudden. And perhaps a little bit of a sense of entitlement. And what you saw was a team that kind of fought against that all year. And I think that season was a little bit of a wake-up call for them. And everything that you're hearing this year is just so different. Instead of defending the idea that there's infighting or there's issues in the locker room or jealousy or whatever, you don't hear any of that. They're talking about the brotherhood. Almost every interview you hear with the players talking about how excited they are to be done with the off season. Like, how often do you hear that from a team? So I think that we're going to look back 5 years from now and see the 2015 season as almost a necessary evil.
And you mentioned that heartbreaking loss in that Super Bowl. Last year's last game was I don't want to remember that one either. But at least the first half of that Carolina game, they got cleaned. Yeah. Do you think that humbled them at all, and maybe they could use that as motivation for this season?
Yeah, I think so. I think that loss is a really interesting one in particular, because you could look at just about any of their losses over the past 3 or 4 seasons and say, you know what, they were just a play away, and we were the better team, and, if we just do this one thing differently, then, a different outcome, yada, yada. They got thumped for the first 35, almost 40 minutes of that game. And I think it was the first time that they really just had their butts kicked like that, really since 2011, first half of 2011. And even so, even after just taking a drubbing on national television, they bounced back and almost pulled off one of the 3 or 4 greatest comebacks in NFL history. So I think that speaks to the overall talent and resilience team has. But I think you're right. I mean, it showed them that they can't just take a half off and then, decide to come back and win it in the second half and everything's going to be okay. The top half or the top tier of the NFC is really, really, really good. There's the Packers and the Panthers and the Cardinals. They are legit. They're not fluke teams. You got to play your best ball for a full game to beat them. And I don't think we'll see the kind of let up, the 1 and 2 quarter stretches of really blah football this year that we saw last year, just because I think that loss really taught them that you can't get away with that.
Yeah, and moving on more to this year, there's been a lot of discussion among fans as far as drafted running backs, and if one of them will be the long-term solution, maybe even over Thomas Rawls. We have Procise. He's still out of camp, which could open up things for Zach Brooks. Alex Collins seems to be all the rage. Do all three make the team, in your opinion, and who do you think has the best chance to be a long-term success, and does one of them supplant Rawls as a starter?
Yeah, well, I think that they really see Rawls as that guy if he can come back to what he was before, and I think that's still the hope that he can get back up to 100%. But I think they also look at who they were trotting out as their running backs in December. And when you have to hand the ball to Bryce Brown or to 72-year-old Fred Jacson or to DeJuan Harris, for a team whose identity is still, even with the blossoming of the passing game, still run the ball more than any team in the NFL over the last 4 years, you need to trust that guy you give the ball to. So I do think that using 3 of their 10 draft picks on running backs is more of a depth move than it is we're not sure if Rawls is the guy. I think they think Rawls is the guy, but I also don't think they want to give one guy 320, 340 carries in a year. What you see with the current group of running backs is a lot of different styles. Procise, I think, is going to kind of be I think the hope there is that he's kind of what Percy Harvin was supposed to be. I mean, Percy Harvin is a singular athlete among singular athletes, and we got glimpses of that during his time in Seattle. But I think that with Procise, what they're seeing is for 10 cents on the dollar, a guy who can do a lot of the same things. I mean, we're talking about, one of Notre Dame's best receivers and one of the highest recruited receivers in the country out of high school, kind of pull a reverse Golden Tate and in a moment of need go to running back and, average 8 yards a touch almost for, learning the position. So he's a guy that they can split out wide. They can run that jet sweep with. He's a really versatile guy, and I think there's a lot of value in that. I don't see him as depth. I see a really unique role for C.J. Procise. And when you hear Pete Carroll talk about him, they're saying he's the third down back right off the bat. So, that's great. That's a 30-year snap, so you can rest your bell cow, whoever that ends up being. I think with Christian Michael, he's the body of Adrian Peterson, the talent level to be a top running back in the league. But, you've heard, in fact, I heard Michael Robinson today talk about the issue is focus. Can he stay focused on what's important? And if he can, man, amazing. You imagine first and second down splitting carries between a healthy Rawls and a healthy C-Mike, and then defense has to sub in on third down and try and figure out Procise. I think that's kind of what they would like to see. And then Alex Collins, I think, is someone that, they can really count on as really viable depth. I mean, this guy's a 2,000-yard rusher in the SEC. There's only a handful of those ever. And that doesn't happen by accident. That's not he's playing in the WAC and he's a late bloomer that got skipped over by the top teams. This is a guy that's playing against NFL talent in college and doing really well. So I think the guy on the outside looking in is Brooks. He does have a lot of special teams ability, which obviously is valued super high at the NFL level. Since you can only carry so many guys, on a roster. You need those guys at the bottom to be able to do a few things. So I think he'll have a shot. I think they'd love to stash him on the practice squad and keep him as depth, but I'd say he's the guy that's on the outside looking in right now.
That's a great answer, actually. And we're speaking with Jacson Bevens at fieldgoals.com. I mean, it was like that. It was funny because I'm a Seahawks fan and we host the show. I actually forgot about DeJuan Harris. I forgot I even had any cherries last year.
Yeah, it's easy to do. It's easy to do, yeah.
It is, yeah. So, Cliff Averill is a guy, he gets overshadowed, I think, a little bit by Michael Bennett because Michael Bennett's skill and also he's outspoken. Now, is this guy just truly underrated? Does the NFL overlook this guy? And what do you expect from Cliff Averill in 2016?
Listen, man, I get so excited when people talk about Cliff Averill. I am a huge fan of him. I think that if the Seahawks ever found them in a position where they had to choose between him and Bennett, Bennett's probably the guy just because he's one of 5 guys maybe in the NFL who can play inside or outside that offensive tackle and be just as effective. Averill, you really kind of got to line up wide and let him go. But, he's a sack getter for sure. He's a guy you can kind of count on for that 7 to 10 sack range, and there's value in that, even if it doesn't, put you at the top of the league leaderboard. But what Averill is consistently top 10 at in the NFL is something that the Seahawks value really, really strongly, and that's pressures. He gets to the quarterback as often as anybody in the league just about, and the value in that is when you have a secondary, Pete Carroll is so revolutionary. I think he's going to be seen 20 years from now as someone who kind of changed the way defenses are built because he's the first guy to build a defense back to front. Everyone starts with that pass rush and their linebackers and then fills in the secondary. He started with his secondary and built forward, and the way that he leverages that is by having guys where even if they're not getting sacks, they're forcing quick releases. They're not letting that quarterback get to his third read, which means his big physical receivers can throw guys off of their timing in that first 5 yards, which is what they do. And that means that the quarterback now has to make a decision really quickly to a guy who's not where he's supposed to be. And that gives them a chance to eat really good on the back half of the defense. So I think that with Averill, there's a huge amount of value there simply because of the pressure that he can put on a quarterback and force him off his spot. So I think Averill is really underrated. I don't think, the back of his football card stats are ever going to jump off the page at anybody, but watching him play, he's so disruptive. And when you're on a defense with 6 or 7 all-pro talents, you don't need him to get 20 sacks, I mean, he can do his job at a Pro Bowl level without getting those huge numbers.
Yeah, sticking with the defense, Frank Clark coming into last year, I don't know that a lot of us really knew what to expect from him, but he had a pretty darn good rookie year. And Michael Bennett even said he's probably one of the most talented defensive linemen he's played with. What should we expect as Seahawks fans from Frank Clark this year?
Big things, I think, if they can really settle in that role. There's a lot of talk about him taking over the Bruce Irvin role. I think that one of the things that kept Bruce Irvin from ever becoming what we all wanted him to be as a first-round pick was that he was never able to define a role. They wanted to bring him in as a speed rusher. He never developed a second move. If you could get your chest in front of him, you could shut him down. He never quite got that spin move or swim move or anything that made him to a multifaceted pass rusher. So that forced them to adapt his role and to turn him into more of a drop back guy and someone they kind of pick their spots and packages with. With Frank Clark, what you have is someone who can beat a guy inside, he can beat a guy outside, and he has the athleticism to drop into a route, get his hands up, and make plays that way. So I think with Clark, what you see is a more natural fit for the role that they envisioned for Bruce Irvin. And there is so much value in that in a Pete Carroll defense. So I think with Frank Clark, you not only are getting a tremendous talent, you're getting a tremendously young talent and someone who, like Sherman and Chancellor and Wagner and Thomas, guys who are going to be learning football at the NFL level in the Pete Carroll system, where you have really unique roles carved out for you, and where the focus is, let's play to what this guy can do, not worry about what he can't do. And so if you're a young NFLer and you've got your positional coach scheming a defense around what you do best, I mean, that's how a guy like Brandon Browner, who gets completely torched in New Orleans when asked to play a traditional cornerback role, can be all-pro in Seattle or a Pro Bowler because they don't ask him to go out and cover a guy for 6 seconds. They focus on what he's great at, which is breaking up routes inside of 15 yards and then pass him off to Earl if he gets behind him. So with Clark, I think that Pete Carroll finally has that hybrid rusher / outside linebacker, what they call the Leo position, that he's always wanted and has never really had someone with the attributes like Clark to fill that role. So I think over the next 5 years, Frank Clark is going to be an absolute terror.
Awesome. That's good. That's great news. Hey, one more question about the defense.
Yeah.
What, as far as, when Cam Chancellor finally showed up to play last year, what was your take on his performance, and does he need to play a little better this year for the Seahawks to make a Super Bowl run?
Definitely, man. I think that what we saw last year was a highlight of how important this time of year is. I remember listening to one of those mic'd up episodes at a Seahawks training camp, and I can't remember what it was. Maybe it's KJ Wright had missed a couple days of practice, and for whatever reason, and Rich Sherman was just in his ear as soon as he got back the whole time, saying about how he had missed all this time not learning his job, but learning all the people around him's job, and I think with Cam, you have a guy who was in a team full of dogs. He's the lion leading the pack. You know what I mean? And when you take that away, it's hard to, I would imagine, to just step back in and all of a sudden command that kind of respect when you've sort of been skipping out on all the work and the communication that the rest of the guys are getting. So I don't think that there's a talent drop-off that really happened last year as much as it was potentially a mentality and communication drop-off. But let's not forget the Seahawks only allowed 15 points a game after Cam Chancellor came back. I mean, that's 2013 level defense. They didn't allow a touchdown in their first 22 drives with Cam Chancellor back. I mean, it's not like he came back and sucked. It's just that there were times you saw it at the end of games. He got beat by Eifert over the top twice on those 2 backbreaking touchdowns against the Bengals. Olsen got him in the Panthers game. You could see the communication was off. That's just reps. That's just time with your brothers in the secondary and getting that feel that a band gets when they've played 1,000 shows together and they know exactly when to pick each other up. You step out of that for a few months when other guys are getting meaningful reps in. Not only are they learning to play their roles without you, they're learning to play their roles and compensate for inferior talent, whether it be Deion Bailey or whoever. Kelsey McRae, some of these guys that they put in there who are fine players, but they're not Cam Chancellor, right? So I think that continuity, that communication is so important. And I see no reason to think that Cam, who by all accounts is fully repentant and focused and, ready to be the guy he's been. I mean, if it sounds like I'm fluffing up the Seahawks too much, it's because I legitimately think we might see the best Seahawks team we've ever seen this year.
Wow. And that says a lot. Well, Jacson, we've had you on.
Yes, it does.
Each time we've had you on, you've been fantastic. And we do think, personally, that Cigar Thoughts 2015, the Seahawks retrospective, should be required reading by all children in the world.
Thanks for the plug.
No problem. Seriously, people should check it out. So where can people find that, and where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, thanks. So if you're unfamiliar with my work, I write a column for fieldgulls.com called Cigar Thoughts. Basically, I light up a stogie at the end of every Seahawks game and spend the next hour recapping. And I think that there's kind of a unique voice to them. And it was really flattering to see the feedback I've gotten over the last 5 years and the push to have something a little bit more consumable in the off season. So we put together a multimedia ebook, the Cigar Thoughts season retrospective, and not only do you get all of the articles from the season, what's really cool about when those articles post is it's very much in the immediate aftermath of the game. So instead of just being a season recap, the idea is it's kind of drawing you back into how you felt after each of those games. And last season was insane. It's so easy to look back on it and just remember, oh, well, they didn't quite get where we thought they were, and they had that ugly game against the Panthers, and that's that. But you forget about that insane game against the Steelers, or how they blew out the Cardinals, or the miracle win in Minnesota, or how Chancellor basically saved their season in early October with the punch out in against Detroit Monday night, or all of the worry that was there when they were 2-4, and is this the end of the era, and do they need to switch things up? All of those narratives that define a season kind of pulls you back into it. And there's some cool stuff, and then there's social media shareable passages, there's links to the podcast, there's highlights. You reading about a play, you can click on it and see the highlight of that play. It's something that I connected with some really talented people on the design front, and it's downloadable to all your devices, or you can just consume it on your browser. You can get that at SeahawksCigarThoughts.com. It's only $9.95. And, I'd love to check it out. The feedback's been great. I appreciate the plug. And you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Seahawks Cigar Thoughts, and then also on Twitter at Jacson Bevens. That's JACSON BEBENS. And, more the better. So
absolutely.
I appreciate the chance to let me pimp myself a little bit.
No problem. Well, thank you very much, and we, of course, love to have you on again during the season at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. I really appreciate the work you guys do, and any part of it I can be, I'm happy to. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it sounds great, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
So Kevin, I don't know if you've checked out the Seahawks Cigar Thoughts retrospective, but it's really well put together. I mean,
it is.
He has that I think it's almost like a 2-minute promo, and he mentioned how he'd worked with people to make it look good. I mean, it looks fantastic. And I was thinking, I don't know how to do that. It looks awesome. I'd like to have 10% of that. So it was interesting. So and we'll be talking to Danika Brace of the Seattle Mist in just a few moments. They have a playoff game coming up. What do you think about some of the things Jacson said, especially his comment about, actually, I think we're going to be joined by Danika right now. So we would now welcome Danika Brace of the Seattle Mist to the show. Danika was the 2015 League MVP of the Legends Football League and helps lead the Seattle Mist into this year's playoffs. Danika has been with us before, and she was fantastic before, and we appreciate her being on again. So, Danika, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, absolutely. So, what do you think is the biggest difference between last year's team and this year's team?
Oh, man. We have a lot of the same players that have come back. I wouldn't say there's a huge difference. We do have Dom, who is one of the speediest running backs, and Dominique Malloy. She came from Las Vegas, and I actually kind of brought her into the system in Las Vegas, and she's ridiculously fast, which has been helpful because we've always had Stevie, who's such a strong running back, and she's reliant. Any first down we need, 1 yard, 2 yard, 3 yards. She's a big power back, so she'll get it for you. But having that speed really helps us open up some stuff because the corners have to be true. If we are to run a jet or something, the corners can't be gone with those receivers. So you got to be ready to come down and make that play because no DN will get out and get her too quick. So, other than that, though, we're pretty much the same. We've just all been through it before, so sometimes we get a little complacent, and I think we fixed that problem more recently.
And so what approach are you taking and the team taking, do you think, to the August 20th playoff game against the Dallas Desire, and how do you win the game?
Execute. We have not played a complete game as the Seattle Mist all season. We've let up on blocks early. We'll get the initial block and then just stop and expect that the play is done already, when really that's the player that ends up making the play. The minute you just kind of think you did your job and then you stop, you always got to be moving on the field. So we have to execute every single thing we do. The play actions from the quarterback have to be fully, executed, taken out to be able to get a defense to not know whether the ball was handed off or if we're going to pass it. Our defense, I didn't get to play much in the Dallas game, unfortunately. I went out with a concussion, and something about that, like we just kind of, I don't know if we weren't ready for the tight end release, which we knew was coming. But we have to be sound on defense. We got to just be playmakers. And even if they do release a delayed route off that tight end, somebody's got to pick it up. You just got to be an athlete and keep your head on the swivel. So we got to execute, and we got to be a little bit more aggressive on defense.
Excellent answer, and we hope you win. So, I don't want to jinx anything and say you're going to win, but let's talk about the other two teams that you potentially could face, the Atlanta Steam or Chicago Bliss. How do you think the Mist would match up in a potential matchup against them?
Chicago's interesting with a new quarterback being there, and she actually isn't even here right now, which is crazy because she won't be playing tomorrow or tonight. What is today? Whatever day they play. I think they play tomorrow, Atlanta and Chicago. So it'll be I don't even know who I'd rather see. Atlanta, I think we would have an easier time with, quite honestly, but I also think it'd be a little bit chippier. There's a lot of personal beefs that are going on between the girls on the Atlanta team and our team, just because of the amount of East Coasters that we have playing on our team who have played either with the girls from Atlanta or against some of the girls that are now on Atlanta. So yeah, I mean, Chicago's always a good matchup with us. It's fun because they used to be in our conference. But yeah, I mean, either way, we'll be ready to face whoever it is. But we definitely have to handle this first game because we took a loss to Dallas already. So we can't look past it and think, oh, there's a new franchise, or they just brought back this franchise this year and think we're just going to run through them, because obviously that's what happened to us last time. We got ran through.
Danika, you were nominated to the Legends Football League Hall of Fame this year, and congratulations on that, first off. But what was your reaction when you heard that news that you were going to be nominated?
I don't know if I'm going to say I was surprised. I think it's kind of I'm not saying that in a cocky way. It's weird for me to be nominated while I'm still currently playing. King Griffey Jr. was just put in the MLB Hall of Fame, and when's the last time you saw him play a baseball game? So it's kind of weird to be a current player and being talked about being in the Hall of Fame. I feel like I still have a lot more to prove. I don't think I've really totally reached my full potential. I'm just now understanding the game of football and my position. Last year was a great year for me, and I worked very, very hard to achieve what I did. There was a lot of things that people don't see me doing. I work with other NFL players. I work with other trainers and coaches, and I fly around the country to try to get the best type of training possible. I take it very seriously because I don't want to be just some average LFL player that'll say, oh, yeah, she was good for a girl. I never want to hear that. So, I mean, I'm definitely honored. But I also work extremely hard, so I hope that someday I will be inducted in the Hall of Fame, and if that's not this year, I'm not really worried about it. Like I said, that's a patience thing. Ken Griffey Jr. just got, elected into it. So, I'm happy, and it shows that hard work, doesn't go unnoticed, but at the same time, like I said, I'm okay if it's not this year I get put in.
Yeah, and I've seen that you've actually had some training sessions and some public events with some of the Seahawks players. I've seen those. Now you have been real successful in your playing career, and what are your hopes for yourself for the future, and what are your hopes for the league in the future?
I do hope that the league will get back to a pay structure so that there's two parts to that. Number one, the girls that do take it seriously now, like myself and KK and, other girls that I know are working hard outside of what's required of us, I'd love to be able to be compensated, and for those girls to be compensated, say, hey, look, what you're doing, this extra work that you're putting in, it's worth it. It's worth your gas money, your time off of work, whatever it may be. So I'd love for the league to get back to a comfortable compensation plan, which will just come with more exposure of the league and more fan base and more people buying memorabilia and being true to the sport and loyal and being good fans and buying tickets. and that's okay. I mean, this is a startup league. It's, yes, year 7, but the NFL didn't, those guys weren't making millions of dollars until, 10, 15 years down the road. So we have a little while. It's growing, which is great. I just hope that people can continue to take it seriously, because some of the girls, because we're not compensated, some of the girls don't take it as seriously because it's not a real commitment to them, because it's hard to see, to look down the road and say, hey, well, one day I could be put in the Hall of Fame if I just keep working hard every day and keep sacrificing my relationships, my time at work, my career, whatever it is. A lot of things that we have to sacrifice, but it's part of being a female in athletics. So I love that, obviously, down the road, and maybe, change up the uniforms a little bit. I don't expect us to be in full pants, full jerseys, none of that stuff, because go look at any other female sports. Go look at beach volleyball. Go look at women's track and field. They're in a sports bra and basically underwear running around. And even tennis, Venus and Serena wear these lacy, tight one-piece outfits. So female sports will always have some element to it that isn't, baggy shorts, and because the WNBA isn't doing well, to be honest with you, and that's unfortunate. But at the same time, I'm very proud of my body, and I'm okay showing it off, because I'm a strong woman, and I think that's a really empowering thing. So yeah, I mean, and for myself, I'd like to continue playing for a couple more years, so long as that fits in with my career and with my family goals. But, I hope that I am remembered and that people remember me in a good way. Yes, I do run my mouth on the field. But I'd like my character to be remembered as, wow, she was a leader, and she really did put effort and time and love and passion into this game. And I hope that rubs off on some people.
Yeah, you mentioned the gas money. I know Stevie, she drives down from British Columbia, doesn't she?
She does. Yep.
Yeah. That's a ways. Now, you mentioned the league's been around for 7 years, since 2009. How do you think the fans have, or the reaction to the league and the acceptance of the league has changed over the years?
Oh, it's changed incredibly. I just did an interview a couple nights ago and got brought up. I didn't even realize it, but the amount of little girls and little boys, especially when I put on this camp, I put on a free camp for the community, and it was just an all-around athlete camp. So it was all sports, and it was just being a good person and being an all-around athlete. And the kids, the amount of people that showed up, I thought people were going to show up for the Seahawks, but the amount of people that showed up for the Seattle Mist and for, that are fans of mine, the little kids, ages 7 through 12, and they were like little boys that play football, little girls that want to play football, or they play soccer, but they just want to be like me when they grow up. It was really empowering. Before it was 2009, 2010, there weren't as many strong athletes. There was a lot of girls that wanted a contract with Playboy, or to get picked up for a reality TV show, or whatever it was, which is fine. But like I said, it's changed so much that the fans are little girls now, little boys, because kids don't really see a sexual side to it, because they're kids, right? No one's taught them about that yet. It's just, wow, Mom, she hits really hard, or wow, she can throw really far. Like, how cool is that? And they're fans, and they see it for the game as opposed to for the entertainment element of it. And we have, like I said, a lot of NFL guys are watching, and they're saying, wow, kudos to you guys for hitting as hard as us, but with not as many pads. That's kind of badass. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is badass. I've done shoulder pads and a helmet, and that's about it. And I think it's great that given there's more opportunities for young girls to look up to you guys, and I think that's fantastic. And Danika, we want to thank you for being on again, and hopefully you'll come on with us at another time too. Can you let people know where we can watch the LFL games, and then also where they can get you on social media doing yoga on a paddleboard or backflips off a dock catching a football?
Hey, I caught that backflip, and that's hard,
I know
man.
You did.
It's hard when you got to avoid the dock. I didn't want to hit my head backflip in the football catch. But yeah, my social media last name. So it's DANIKA BRACE. So it's Danika Brace. Keep it simple for you guys. And then you guys can watch, you can catch games. YouTube has the rights to our footage now. So the games actually come on a week after we play them. And that's the full coverage of the game. And then if you're local, we play on Root Sports, which is the same as what the Mariners play on. I'm not sure what your cable provider is, but we're on Root Sports. And then I just tell anybody, if you can make it down to a game, seeing it live is 100% better. I mean, there's nothing like it. So we play at the Showwear Center in Kent, and you can go online to showwearcenter.com to find tickets.
And that the next game is August 20th, right?
That's correct, August 20th. So it's actually 2 for the price of 1. So you'll get to see the Eastern Conference playoffs, and then the Western Conference will follow right after. So same price for tickets, but you get 2 games in 1, which is pretty cool. So if you guys are going to buy tickets, use the promo code SM08 because it'll give you a nice little discount, little break from the taxes and fees.
Awesome. We appreciate it, Danika. Thanks for being on, and we'll talk to you soon. Good luck on the 20th.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, yeah, Danika, she's been on twice, and she's always great. I mean, it's both times. It's like I like the points she makes about not just hey, come see our games, but look, I'm a strong, powerful woman, and that is a good thing because I think a lot of times in society we don't get that. You know, it's like the woman needs to be whatever. But I like that she's proud of not that what she's wearing necessarily, but how she looks. She's a strong, healthy woman, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing to hear. And
she's
for anybody,
she's very honest too. I love that about when people are honest like that, straightforward.
Exactly. Yeah, and as you pointed out the first time she was on, it was funny because Kevin, thankfully, is the one that's reached out to her and gotten her on the show. And the first time she was on the show, Kevin didn't say, "Oh, I've got this." Kevin was like, "Have you seen her hit?" And it's like, wow, you can actually see it. It's awesome. And she hits hard. I wouldn't want to be hit by her.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
So anyway, that's our show for tonight. Of course, we would like to thank Jacson Bevens of Field Goals and Danika Brace of Seattle Mist for being on. We'll be back, I think, in a couple of weeks. We'll work it out, and then of course training camp. Then we're going to start being back, every week after that. Once the preseason starts and we start getting into the games, which are right around the corner. So as always. I'd like to thank Kevin for being my co-host. It's always a joy to watch talk Seahawks and then watch the games and then, of course, talk Seahawks after the game at some point, and always thankful for the guests we have on. But, the final words are always left for Kevin. And lately, during the summer, of course, we just had Ken Griffey join the Hall of Fame. We played Dave Niehouse's bit a couple weeks ago, and we're going to do it tonight too. That's going to be our outro. But Kevin, you have the final words.
I'm going to add a couple words. I'm going to say "Go Hawks" and "Go Mist."
Sorry to interrupt you. I was shocked. I was just, it's going to be "Go Hawks." I'm sorry. I stepped on your lines. I'm a horrible playwright, so I want you to say it one more time.
Go Hawks and go Mist.
The fans hoping to catch a little bit of the old-time religion right here, baby. With Junior stepping up to the plate. Here comes the stretch. And the pitch to Junior on the way. Swing and a fly ball hit to deep right center field. That baby is going to be fly away. The old-time religion lives. Junior does it. A 2-run home run. And we are tied at 3-3. My, oh my. Magic is back at least for a night.
Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever. Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Files today to get our best offer ever.